Times with We Are Listening.
Hey, everybody. Hope you can hear me. Let me make sure I don't have myself muted. Yes, you can hear me. My name is Ahmed Dents, Development and Artistic Associate here at San Diego Repertory Theatre, and welcome to We Are Listening. If this is your first time, if this is not your first time, well, then welcome back. Thank you for joining us. Before we get started tonight, I would like to read very quickly our land acknowledgement. We would like to acknowledge that the theater spaces and offices of San Diego Repertory Theatre are built on the traditional lands of the TYPA Kumeyaay Nation. We also want to recognize their neighbors in the region, the Jacole Kitchen, I hope I can pronounce that correctly, Tequila and the Capono peoples. We are grateful, these community members, for their tremendous contributions to our region and thank them for their continual stewardship. San Diego Rep honors Indigenous peoples past, present, and future here and around the world, and we wish to pay respect to local leaders, including those of lands which you may be joining us from virtually today. Again, my name is Ahmed Dents, Development and Artistic Associate here at San Diego Repertory Theatre. As I'm going through all kinds of technical malfunctions here, trying to get things going the right way. Again, thank you for joining us here on We Are Listening. And I would like to bring on camera with me my wonderful co-host, the Director of Arts Engagement and in-house casting at La Jolla Playhouse, Jacole Kitchen. What's up, Jacole?
Hey, Ahmed. Hey, everybody. Good to be here.
What is going on? What is going on? How you doing today?
Good. Good to be back. Good to be back with We Are Listening. Looking forward to this conversation today.
Good. We have a spectacular guest that's about to join us in just a moment, but we want to go ahead and get into some announcements. I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to Jacole. Jacole, what is going on around in the Playhouse world?
Yeah, two things to be aware of at this point. This Saturday, we are kicking off the official launch of Toward Belonging, which is put together by Anjanette Mariah Ramey, choreography by Anjanette, spoken word by Gil Sotu, and a number of amazing multi-hyphenate artists that are part of this. We will be having an official watch party, launch kickoff watch party that is going to be hosted by Bennett Peggy and Viviana Peggy, who you know last seen on rep stages in Evita. Viviana is fantastic and going to be representing the artist community for hosting Towards Belonging watch party, but you will be able to see the two parts of Toward Belonging on our website starting Saturday. So please tune in for that, as well as the watch party at 11 a.m. on Saturday. And then also coming up soon, we have part 2 of 1,000 Ways from 600 Highwaymen. It is a one-on-one experience that will allow you to connect with, I don't even know if it's on here. It should be somewhere under our but it's going to be coming up. It's going to be one of our first in-person experiences to help wean us back into real life at the theater. It's a one-on-one experience that allows you to connect with a stranger coming out of this time of such isolation. And of course, coming up mid-May, we will be streaming Pick Me Last by Idris Goodwin, directed by yours truly, filmed by Blue Light Productions, and is going to be streaming for free for educators and families starting the spring. It should be released by mid-May. Please keep looking back. You can pre-sign up now. You can already sign up to be able to get the link when it is available. Can't wait to share that with families. Usually the pop tour is able to reach 20,000 students around San Diego County. being able to shift to streaming this year, we are looking forward to expanding that reach, not just in San Diego, but also all around the country. And that's what's
Cool,
going
cool.
on at La Jolla Playhouse. What's happening in your neck of the woods?
Cool, cool. Thank you, Jacole. Before I get to the rep, let's talk about the Old Globe. As many of you know, if you don't know, now you do know that we are listening is in partnership with La Jolla Playhouse, the Old Globe, and San Diego Repertory Theatre. And it began on April 23rd, Hamlet on the Radio, of course, by William Shakespeare, directed by Barry Edelston. This is actually being broadcast on KPBS 88.9 FM. The next broadcast is coming up on May 2nd at 2 p.m. and then also Friday, June 18th at 7 p.m. and Sunday, June 27th at 2 p.m. So please head on over to the oldglobe.org to check out that and more things that are going on. Here at San Diego Rep, we have a spectacular show that is streaming right now through May 8th, also by Idris Goodwin. This is Hype Man, a breakbeat play. Absolutely spectacular, a lot of fun and very timely. Please head on over to sdrep.org and check that out. And then also coming up, beginning streaming on May 3rd, it is Play at Home, the real life RPG or the video game play with Amigos del Rep. The Play at Home project began in March 2020 when the global pandemic shut down live theater. In the spirit of resilience, adaptation, and innovation, theaters came together to create a Play at Home project. It is a short series of plays commissioned specifically for this moment of unprecedented isolation, which is coming to an end and winding down. But this is still available for you to check out, and it'll be a lot of fun. So again, head on over to sdrep.org and check that all out. Again, sdrep.org, lajollaplayhouse.org, and theoldglobe.org to see what is going on. So let's get into it, Jacole. Let's go ahead and bring on our guest. I'm so excited to talk to her. Please, everybody, welcome to We Are Listening, the managing director and dramaturg of TYPA Theatre, and arts educator and teaching artist at the Old Globe and board member for San Diego Junior Theater, Kimberly King. What is up, Kimberly?
Hey guys, I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for asking me, Ahmed. Nice to be here.
Thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. I've been looking forward to, this whole pandemic thing. Me and Jacole talked about it before that. And this is more me of now working in the artistic side of things. I'm meeting so many more people in this industry, but also just during the pandemic, and we started this platform and started talking to people, and we're realizing how many people in San Diego we actually didn't know that worked in theater. And so we really appreciate you joining us tonight, Kimberly. We know you are busy, but thank you for making the time to join us tonight.
Oh yeah, I had to take a few things off my plate lately and just say, you know what? Breathing is good. Breathing is good. Sitting is good. Just like smiling is good. You have to relax a little bit, but it has been a crazy time. And our theater community in San Diego, it's so small, but it's so wide. And at the same time, you can know a lot of people and still not know everyone. So I was really glad to finally meet you as well, and just a lot of people in the community, especially when Black Artist Collective came out. I'm sure we'll talk about that later, but yeah. I was just so happy to meet all the brothers and sisters in the community. I was like, oh, we're not alone. We're together. Let's do something mighty,
Yeah, for me, it all started with that large forum at the Old Globe. I believe that you were there as well. And this We Are Listening audience has heard me complain about this in depth. I just remember seeing that picture and I'm going, why is it that many Black people in San Diego theater that I don't know so many of them? And why am I not in that picture? I was so angry. But again, that seeing that was my first glimpse into, oh, there's a lot more of us here than I thought there was.
It was a pretty moving experience. Every time I look at that picture, that's our Facebook cover for the BAC. I still have this movement in my heart about that whole time period because the Globe was doing Jitney, August Wilson's Jitney. And I was so fortunate. I was the teaching artist. They asked me to do the talkbacks after the show. So it was just a fantastic experience. The whole cast was wonderful and gracious, beautiful people. The set was fantabulous. There was a car on the stage. And so every day that I did the talkbacks, I have to walk around this car and get onto the stage and talking with all these Black people, these accomplished Black actors about their experiences and people asking them questions. It was just a whole new level for me. And for that to be the kickoff of the BAC in San Diego, I felt like that was fitting. That was fitting.
For sure, for sure.
And we're both so excited to talk to you that we totally skipped the first part of like how we usually start this show. We're like, let's just to get into it. So Ahmed, take us back. Take us back.
Well, real quickly before we get to that, you mentioned August Wilson, and to go along with you two April babies, this week we are celebrating the birthday of August Wilson, whose birthday was just 2 days ago on April 27th. I'm going to go ahead and say it, in my opinion, was the greatest playwright in American history, as far as I'm concerned. So we just want to give that shout out to August Wilson into the ether this week. But yeah, getting back to what we do, Kimberly, like I say, always anybody can read a bio, but we like for our guests to tell the audience a little bit about themselves. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started in this performing arts world.
Oh my God. Well, you're gonna have to stop me, okay, when it's time to move on, because I could go on forever. I'm of that age where I have history. I'm a native San Diegan. I'm proud to say there's not a lot of us here, but I am one of them. And I've always, you too, yay. I went to UCSD when I was, after high school, I went to UCSD, and I'd always been musically inclined. I've been a musician, kind of played at my church and sang at my church a lot, Philadelphia Baptist Church in Logan Heights, and just decided I was going to be a music major after 2 years unsuccessful pre-med, I'll have to say. At UCSD, if you are not in it to kick ass in pre-med, you don't go. I just thought, I'm going to be a pediatrician, but that wasn't in the cards. So I graduated with a music major, and then I was in a couple of bands here in town, some reggae bands, some alternative bands, just kind of hopping around, popping around. And then I got pregnant, and I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe the band life is not a thing I can do. But luckily, then I got married. And so my husband at the time, he was my guitarist. And so we actually, after the baby came, we decided, well, let's try again. So we played in coffee houses and got kind of a little following. And then it would turn into a tumultuous situation, as like a lot of these artistic dalliances do. And we had another baby before we got divorced. And so then I had 2 babies, and I was raising them by myself. And I got the opportunity to audition for a reggae band. I don't know, my daughter, she was 6 or something. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to try again. I can still sing. And so I auditioned for Tribe of Judah. And they said, oh, we love you. Do you know Tribe of Judah? Did you know them?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Well, then you saw me, because we played the beach theme, and we played all the clubs and all the beach clubs. And then it kind of, once we were playing for it to pay off our tab. So needless to say, the reggae lifestyle, we were living it. And but then I met my second husband, and he was a drummer in another reggae band, and they were oh gosh, I can't remember the name of it all of a sudden. Anyway, I just clearly am a sucker for musicians, and we had a baby. So, but he turned out to be not very dependable either, and I should have known, because he was drummer. Sorry, drummer.
I was gonna say he's a drummer.
Y'all keep the rhythm like it's nobody's business, but he didn't. It didn't work out. So then I had 3 children. And I did have my teaching credential. I had finished UCSD with a teaching credential, and I was gainfully employed as a teacher. And I thought, well, I'm just going to put my head down and raise these kids, and teach. And then they start growing up. It's amazing how that happens. And I thought, oh my gosh, what happened to my life? And one by one, as I'm thinking that, one by one, all my kids started veering towards the arts. And people want their kids to be doctors and lawyers and whatnot. And I am an artist at heart, and teaching is an art too, as far as I'm concerned. And they all turn out to be artists. And I thought, where'd that come from? Oh yeah, that's the thing that I used to do. And it more and more came to me that I need to be back into this. And I started doing more artistic work with my students at school. And then I thought to myself, and then an opportunity came up so we have one school in our school district that is a visual and performing arts magnet, and an elementary school district that's very rare. And we had one school that was that, and the woman who started it was ready to retire. And she knew my reputation because I am an extrovert and had always tried to do artistic things with my kids. And she said, Kimberly, I'm retiring. Do you want to try to get this job? You want this job? So I went over and had the interview and blah, blah, blah. I'm doing this visual and performing arts magnet in South Bay Union School District for the last 10 years now. So we're doing a fall showcase and a spring full-blown musical show. So we're putting on these shows. It's 90 kids, 30 in the 4th grade, 30 in the 5th grade, and 30 in the 6th grade. So imagine trying to find shows for 90 kids and then wrangling 90 kids for these shows. And it was just me as drama and choral music. We had a dance teacher and we have a visual artist that creates all the setting and environment. So we're doing, and it was just beautiful. It was just a wonderfully stressful experience, constantly stressful. And I thought to myself, I want to do more than put on a show. I feel like that's what I'm doing. It's putting on a show. I want to, what am I doing? What are we really doing? So I decided to go back to school at 47 and get my master's. And I got my master's in theater arts from SDSU, Go Aztecs, at 50. And since then, we have been really process engaged, I have to say, at my district office, really focused on what this means to the children to be engaged in theater. We're putting on shows, but the most important thing is not the show. The most important thing is, of course, the process and how they're growing and achieving through it. And I have to say, not too long after I graduated, I got hooded. My younger son, and all my kids are like 6 years apart. So the poor guy was just home alone with me all the time because the other two were grown and gone. And I came home and one day we said, you know what? We should have a theater company. Actually, he said it. And then I said, you know what? I was thinking the same thing. And 2017, TYPA was born, Teenage Youth Performing Arts. And we've just been pushing through with that ever since. We had a great fundraising year. We had a great season the first year, and then our second year, and then it got cut short by COVID. So our whole third year we spent, of course, locked down like everybody else. And this is our 4th year, and we're hoping to do some devised work. We're hoping to devote, we are going to be devoting a lot of time to our Black, Indigenous, people of color communities, because, we started our theater company to be free of charge for young people. And it turns out, I don't know why this is, but it's something with our capitalistic mindset that if things are free, then people are leery of it. So we had a difficult time rallying a lot of the friends that my son knew in theater from school and from junior theater. Yay, junior theater. They just weren't coming out. But who was coming out were people of color. A lot of Black kids. And we had just Black kids, Asian kids coming out for our shows. And we said, you know what? This is who this theater company is for. This is who is supporting us. These kids and their families are coming out for us. So we changed our mission statement at that point and made it so that we are doing whatever play, but our work is from a Black perspective. We are Black. We are proud to be Black, and we're proud to be in theater. We're proud of the strong history and heritage that people of color have in theater and music and the arts. And we are here to celebrate that as Teenage Youth Performing Arts. Everybody is welcome. Everybody is invited to participate. And we just make it clear that this is the perspective from whence we come, from a Black perspective. And that's what I've been doing. Plus teaching. So 25 years, I'm celebrating 25 years of teaching elementary school, most of it in the 6th grade. So that's been fun. That'll keep you young. And raising kids, of course. I got a 30-year-old, a 23-year-old, and an 18-year-old. And my 30-year-old will be making me a grandmother in August with his lovely wife. They're fantastic, dynamic, artistic couple. I don't know if you know them, Zach King and Nguyen King. They do a lot of dance.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we've had Zach on the show. Zach was on the show with us. We had an episode where we talked to members of the Black Artists Collective, along with the leader of the Theater Folks of Color Facebook group. So yeah, Zach was representing.
Awesome. Yeah, that's the King family. That's our goal now. If somebody says King, they're going to know who they're talking about.
Yes, ma'am.
That's our goal.
I realized actually, now that you said that, I realized the first time actually that you and I ever met I want to say, and now I'm getting things mixed up, but I want to say it was when I first started at the Playhouse, and it was at Art Walk. We had a table at Art Walk. And I feel like you maybe came up and chatted and told me that your teenage son was wanting to start a theater company. And how can we, and I was just so taken with that. But then we met again when you were volunteering for the WOW Festival.
Yes.
And so now I might be getting things mixed up, but hearing you talk about your son saying, let's start a theater company. I feel like we met years before.
But yeah, you're right. I remember that too at the park, at Balboa Park, when we're by the koi pond.
Yeah.
Over there, I remember it. And I said to myself, who is this Black lady from La Jolla Playhouse? What is going on here? And I was intrigued at that point. Of course, I still had a little bit of imposter syndrome going on, that I didn't know for sure that I belonged. So I thought, well, she's there, and that already, I don't know if I can talk to her. So I'm glad that, time marches on and we learn our lessons, whether they're stiff or loose, we learn our lessons and we are colleagues. But then yeah, the WOW Festival, that was another exciting thing. I still have that shirt. I'm so proud of that time. I really want another one to happen so I can volunteer again and do the WOW Festival.
And I was going to wait to ask this question, but since we're talking about it right now, you do so much already. Just listening to the things that you are listening, you're a full-time teacher. You are a dramaturg around the city for various productions. You run your own theater company for teenage performers. Why, with all that you do and as full as your plate is with your own artistic and professional endeavors, why is something like volunteering for the WOW Festival? Why is volunteering something that is important to you to keep adding onto that plate? As you're saying, you're taking things off. It's like, I don't think I need this right now. Why is something like volunteering for the WOW Festival or volunteering period something that's important to make sure for you that you keep on your plate?
Part of it is that there's something that runs in my family. I think we have chemical imbalance that a lot of us suffer. But beyond that, somebody did it for me. Somebody did it so that I could be here right now, that I could make a better life for my family than, what all parents want. What my parents wanted was for me to do better than they did. And I want the same for my kids. And somewhere along the line, somebody had to volunteer. Somebody gave of themselves so that I could be here. And I value that. I value that in our history, particularly as Black people. I know a lot of the volunteer work, we probably it wasn't volunteering at the time. It was just mandatory work. But I feel like Black people have a history, have a legacy of helping each other, that we pull each other up. And I want to be there when somebody puts up their hand and says, I need some help to get where you are. Can you help me? I want to be that person. It's a tagline on my signature, actually. It's from a song I wrote, and with my days with Tribe of Judah, become someone who can help someone. Because otherwise, what am I becoming? What am I doing? Why do I deserve a place on the planet with all the people who have given their lives, really, like literally, like this quote behind me from Dr. King? Why do I belong on the same plane with those people? How is that? And then plus I love theater. I love it so much. I can't even express. That's why all of my entanglements are pretty much theater associated. I do a lot, but it's all things I love. Being a trustee for San Diego Junior Theater, it was like a dream, since my daughter started doing it when she was 15 or so, 14, 15 years old. And then my 18-year-old has been doing it since he was about 7 or 8 years old. And my oldest has always been interested in dance. And I did have an opportunity to dramaturg a dance show while at State. And it just fills me with joy. It fills me with so much love. And the people in the theater community, I mean, it's hit and miss sometimes, but it's also an opportunity for me to experience growth in myself. How can I grow to work with this person that is not a joy right now? But I can't say that I've come out of any situation without feeling edified. I feel better. I feel enhanced as a person with my volunteer work and meeting so many different people.
I swear I'm going to let Ahmed get a word in edgewise. I promise. But the last thing that I want to. He knew what he was getting into.
Hey, I'm just here. I just push buttons.
No, but the last thing I want to say to that, you're absolutely right, Kimberly, because the second that you volunteered for the festival and we connected and I had that name to put with the face, we were up on the staff deck and it was hot and we were just, chatting before the other volunteers came. And it was after that I kept hearing your name. And I was like, oh, wait a minute, Kimberly King, that's in the, like, yeah. And I was like, oh yeah, I know her. She volunteered for the WOW Festival. And it just, once that like spark had happened, it just kept igniting. And so again, just showing up and being present and all of that. So thank you for all that you just said. Ahmed, anything that you would like to say?
A couple things here and there. No, I want to touch on something that you just said, because we were talking about that earlier. I wanted to talk to you about being a dramaturg. I wanted to talk to you and maybe talk to the audience for those who don't know or don't have the ins and outs of what that is. And I just really, and it's within the last couple of months, we've had the opportunity, still working on a lot of things together, but we've had the opportunity to work on curating the new Black Voices Festival here at the Rep. But then you are also doing dramaturg on Harlem Duet with Candace at Coronado Playhouse. Talk to me a little bit about how you became interested in doing that. And for those who don't know, or maybe don't know exactly what the ins and outs, a term they've heard, but they don't really know what that is. Can you tell us a little bit about exactly what it is to be a dramaturg and what drew you to that?
If you get 10 dramaturgs in a room, I think if you get 100 in a room, they're all going to have a different take on what it is to be a dramaturg or what it means to be a dramaturg. But I kind of fell into it. I'm a person who has always been kind of on the nerdy end of things. And I would rather read a book than go out in high school. And that, to my social detriment, is just what I did. So I've always been kind of a researcher. I loved college for that reason, that you just were learning and finding things out. And when I decided to go back to school to get my master's, and I really thought I was going to get my MFA. I did think that was going to be my first course of action. But as you guys probably know, the MFA is incredibly grueling. It's like a 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. deal constantly. And I was already a full-time working teacher with still one kid at home and 2 in college. And so I was like, that's not going to work for me. What else will work here? And so I, moving along through the people at the faculty and talked with everybody. And a wonderful professor, Dr. Shelley Orr, said, you should come here. And there was another professor there too. She was retiring the year that I started, so I can't remember her last name, but her first name, Paula, and I don't want to say her last name wrong. But she said, what's for you? This MA program is for you. And so I didn't know if I would like it, but I got into it, and doggone it if it just wasn't just library heaven. And so that is how I ended up in dramaturgy, not knowing that what it was. I just felt, I'm so lucky I'm going to get to study theater and get a degree for studying this thing that I love so much. How crazy is that? So what it turned out to be at SDSU was kind of for school productions, let's say. We did one production I'll never forget that we did there, Blood on the Root. Dominique Morisseau, early play that she wrote. So my job was to create a written atmosphere for the cast. What was it? It was based on a true story that she based on a true story where some white students hung a noose, and this happened in the 80s, I believe, late 80s or early 90s, hung a noose from the tree, the school tree, where the elite students got to sit for shade because it was super hot in the South. And everything that took place from that precipitating event. So I needed to find out about that school. I needed to find out about that town. Where are those certain real people now? My job there was to kind of create an actor's packet, if you will, is kind of a shallow name for it, but something that would help the actors dive into the show and find something that they could grab onto that would make the experience more real for them. So I did a lot of research around the real events that surrounded this consequently fictional tale. And so that's a lot of what dramaturgs do. They create these packets and these research environments for actors to look at. Also, you are the ear for the director. Anything they want to bounce off of you, if they're thinking something looks wrong or feels wrong, or they want to dig into the script with you and talk something out that's not quite making enough sense to them, or if they're thinking of adjusting something, then it's the dramaturg's duty to be as true as you can to the playwright. You're really the playwright in absentia, you're their best friend, right? So you want to make sure that the play sticks as close to what the playwright's intention is as possible. Sometimes you get to talk with them, which for me is just like geek heaven when I have had the opportunity to speak with a playwright or even get like an email answered by a playwright. It was just such a big deal when that happens. And make sure that the story stays true to their initial vision. And gosh, what else do we do? Sometimes we sit in on rehearsals. I know there's a few theater companies, well, the Rep particularly, when I dramaturg with the Rep, they really want you to be there for the first week at least. And I try to be there longer because the director, they're doing their thing, they're shaping and they're molding, and you need to be there as a sounding board. You need to be there as a fact checker. You need to be there to say, are they reading something into this that shouldn't be, or maybe they can read more of this into there? What music was playing at the time, even kind of thing, like what music can we play in the background? Sometimes you might work with the sound engineer, or if they have a musical curator of the show to make a set list, playlist for the whole show, or just for rehearsals, that kind of thing to get people into the mood. So it's a huge job. A lot of dramaturgs actually function as literary managers for their playhouses, especially in the United States. I know in the UK, in Europe in general, if you see a dramaturg, they're probably on staff with a theater house and they have a dramaturg and a literary manager. But here, usually the dramaturg has to do two jobs because we have not found our way to value it completely as it needs to be, dramaturgy, quite yet in the United States. So it is just a big job, and you mostly do what your director would like you to do. That's what
I love hearing that. As a director, I love hearing that. Can you talk a little bit about the difference between being a dramaturg for a new play and being a dramaturg for an established play?
That is, a fabulous question. I did three or four. There's this not a film festival, a little theater festival. It's a 10-minute play festival at the Moxie. Happens every year, except for last year, I guess. And so in collaboration with San Diego State, the new playwrights, the new dramaturgs get together, new directors, maybe not so new, get together and in 48 hours put together all these plays. And so it's a night of plays you go to. So each playwright gets a dramaturg. And so the night before, the dramaturg and the writer just are up all night, and the writer can call you whenever they want, and they're asking you questions about, so how much air does a person need in space? What are the size of the tanks in space if they're going to write some kind of science fiction? So I need to look that up. Or someone is writing a play about smoking, a guy who smokes. They can call you up and say, okay, how many packs a day? What's the world record for, smoking cigarettes in one day? Anything at all that they need to make their play have the most verisimilitude that they can get, they're going to call you, or I'm just going to stay on the line with them all night, or it's happened a lot of different kind of ways, and help them to create the world of their play. So instead of doing it after the fact when the playwright's not there, doing it on the spot with the playwright, helping them create the world of their play on the spot. And then the next day we go into the theater or to the rehearsal space and rehearsing with the actors. And the same process continues where, actors take chances and they make choices. And sometimes, and this is always like behind the hand, because you never want to interrupt somebody's process when they're really being vulnerable and trying to go for it. I might say to the director or to the playwright, do you think that is what that character will do? Is that what you want that character to do? Is that just those kinds of conversations that people may say yes or no, or don't talk to me right now, but it's my job to put it in their mind and on their mind. And that's the same with a new or an established play. But I have to say, the new plays, there's just way more opportunity to get in there and kind of massage the thing and, do a lot more creating on the spot, so that when you see it up on stage, I feel so proud that it's such a collaborative creation, really, in a lot of ways. And with the more established plays, I have to revel in the fact that once that play goes up on stage, I'm done. I'm out. I no longer have any job. I'm just kind of like sitting back and watching the thing. And I think that's one of the biggest differences, is that, once the play is up, I've got nothing. I've already done all of the work that I'm going to do. Mm-hmm. And I think that was the biggest difference to me, that I'm done with an established play when it goes up, but not so much with a brand new play. You might continue to work it, the whole time through. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. You were talking about TYPA Theatre a while ago, and talking about how, it's a Black theater. We're Black folks, you know what I mean? And I wanted to ask you this, because I'm paraphrasing, I was reading a quote from August Wilson last week, where, the tail end of the quote was just basically that, white people in white theater needed to understand that when they're seeing Black characters and Black people on stage, that they're African, and that they react to things differently than white people do, and that is okay, and that is their strength. We worked together on the, like I said, the Black Voices reading series, which was overdue here at the Rep. It was overdue to do something like that. Just because you have a play that has Black people in it, if it ain't written by Black folks and it ain't created by Black folks, it's not a Black play. And right. I think people make that mistake when it comes to seeing something like, hey, did Black people write it? Did Black people create it? Is it coming from a Black perspective? Okay, well, then it's not a Black play if none of those answers are true. Yeah. Talk to me how, especially with this moment that we're in, I know we'll get deep into it, but talk to me about why it was so important for you, for the theater to make sure that you made that profound statement that, hey, this is a Black theater. We are Black people, and especially with you dealing with younger people. Why is that such an important, profound statement for you to make?
Oh, wow. So much in that. Like you said, the Black Voices reading series was overdue. It was just overdue. It was overdue for me personally to make that statement. And I don't know, why our lives are just a conglomeration, as a collage, of lots of small events that in the end, they lead you to where you are at this very moment. And it's just a series of these epiphanies. And that was one that I had. I was like, why do I keep trying to fit in someplace that I just don't? It was very personal, I guess. The upwelling of it was very personal. All of my children, my 3 children, are all biracial children. And so my first 2 children, their father is like Swedish, like super blonde hair, blue-eyed, beautiful, wonderful family. This like the best in-law family ever. And this was back in, when did we get married? In the 90s? And it wasn't even I'm divorced, so you don't keep your anniversary in your head like you used to, when you're married. But when we got married, it was just a great melding of these 2 huge, he had a huge white family, and my family's a really huge, big Black family. And those 2 families, it was just the most beautiful thing to see. Everybody was happy and partying together. We're having a great time. But still, I was trying, I wasn't not proud of my family, but I was still trying to fit into his family. And I often think about why that is. And I know I mentioned earlier, Jacole, this imposter syndrome of like, do I belong here? Who am I? And so in trying to answer that question constantly, right? We're doing that. And in reconciling with my marriage to a white man, and then my divorce from a white man. And then I met Imani, my youngest one's father, and he's a Latino white man. And so these 3 biracial children, and my reconciling with my own Blackness and, history and legacy, it just came to me that I needed to be proud of who I am and what I'm doing for my children to be proud of who I am and what I'm doing. And I know it's weird. I don't even know why it happened still, but my daughter, I have, one daughter and two sons. And so I can always say she's my favorite daughter because I only have one. And I love her dearly. And I looked at her as a young woman growing up, and I thought to myself, how do I want her to feel about herself? And all of my children are, they are Black identified. They've chosen to be Black identified. They could have chosen whichever they wanted. And she chose a really political path for herself. She's a kind of an activist, really. She's a very strong-minded girl. And she happened to have the wiriest hair of all three of the kids. Like, she had the most black hair, her afro. And I thought to myself, just looking at her and looking at her little brown face and her afro, I thought, you know what? You can't make a princess if you are not a queen. And I needed to step into the queenness of it. And it's a long road because I started so late, but they need to see that happening each and every step of the way, the work that it takes. You just don't get to wake up and be one. It's work involved in being a queen. And so I'm doing that work. And part of that work is, like I said, recognizing legacy, recognizing heritage, embracing it, being proud of it, and using it and making something of it. My grandparents came to San Diego from Shreveport, Louisiana, on the way back. And they have a church. They had church here, Philadelphia Baptist Church, that I went to all my life. And so when they both passed, the caretaking of the building fell to my brother and I. In a way, there's a church there, but we're supposed to be looking over it. And we thought, we just need to use this space for something for Black people, something broader for Black people. And so we're working on that now, but just thinking those thoughts, you start putting together, well, what do we do as Black people? Who are we as Black people? What can we do for Black people? And it just fell into place. I have to say, it was one of those puzzle pieces. I'm turning this light on. It was one of those pieces of the puzzle that was appropriate at the time that we recognized, like I said, who we need to serve for teenage youth performing arts was Black people. We just took a look around and we said, nobody's serving this young population of Black people where they are comfortable. This is your space. Everybody can come, but this is a Black space. Come be in this Black space. Come experience this Black space, because it's a lot of things, right? We're not monoliths. We're a lot of things. A lot of us marry white people and have children with white people, or Latinx people, or we go around the world. Some of us speak French and we speak Spanish, and we are such a multi-tendrilled creature is the Black people when we look at it. There's a lot to it. And I think we thought everyone could learn from that and being in that space and kind of reduce this fear, I think, that a lot of people have of being around Black people. It's that clutching the purse in the elevator situation, where that kind of hanging on of being afraid of the Black body. How do we reduce that? How do we get away from that? And I spent a lot of time, I think, in that imposter syndrome, making myself not less aggressive, but less threatening, I guess. It's a terrible, terrible thing to say out loud, but it is the way that I spent a lot of my youth, feeling like I'm Black and I am threatening a lot of people just by being Black. Just think of that as a young person. I'm sure you've had that. And I did not want any more young Black people to have those thoughts in their heads. I just don't want that. I wanted to provide a place where they could experience themselves in their fullness, whatever it is, and say, yes, that's Black. Oh, well, my friends tell me I talk white. I said, well, yep, that's Black.
Well, I want to touch on that I want to touch on something that you said, because you said something about chosen identity and the identity that they chose. And as a mixed race person, and again, I've been studying this my whole life as I am encountering different mixed people. Because as growing up, when I grew up, when black and white, that was really the only mix there was, you know. Now it's like the boring mix. It's not exotic anymore being black and, oh, you're just that? Oh, okay. Well, I thought you were something like interesting. But so being back in the day, especially when being black and white was the main mix that you encountered, there wasn't a choice of identity. And also, I will say, I am somebody that says that I learned a lot of my blackness from my white mother, because she, like you, made it very important that we knew our identity and that we were in touch with our identity as young people. It was my black mother who put us, it was my white mother who put us in African dance class where I learned funga, alafia, ashe, ashe. It was my mother who started Nevadans against apartheid. It was my white mother who was an activist and got Highland Boulevard changed to Martin Luther King Boulevard in Las Vegas, Nevada, So again, this was but I don't think that it was, so I'm, now that I'm saying this out loud, maybe I didn't feel like I had a choice because it was just so much a part of what we did. I will say though, growing up, I knew I was biracial, but I didn't know what that meant. I knew my mom was white, I knew my dad was black, and I knew we were biracial. That was just the identity. It wasn't until later that I learned semantics and of two races. So I've always said society identified me as black. Again, let's talk about that, 1/16? You got a drop of black blood in you, you're black. And so to me, there wasn't a choice of identity, because even though I talked white, even though I went to the same school where people knew my white mother, who was an English teacher, a middle school English teacher. So of course I speak, properly. Anyway, so to me, there wasn't a choice. But the thing that was super interesting to me as I started to encounter more mixed people growing up, other mixed people sort of either do get to choose or have a duality in their cultural identity. Friends that I have that are mixed black and Mexican identify just as much Mexican as they do black. Friends that I have that are mixed Mexican and Filipino identify just as much Filipino as they do Mexican. Any other mixed people that I've met have a duality or allowed to sort of, because of how they grew up, because of what their household is, they lean toward one or another. I feel like when you are mixed with black and white, and I wonder if this would be different with your two older children and your younger child, if you see something different there. But I feel like when you're black and white, you don't get a choice, you're black. Because you are seen as black, you are told you are black, you have, and even with me, I have black features, but then I have blackish features. But so it's confusing to people because you're black, but you don't look completely black and you don't sound completely black, but you're black. And so it's such an interesting question of chosen identity, and it also, and I'm thinking when you're talking about your daughter, it took me to the quote in, have you seen One Night in Miami?
Oh, not yet. I have to work up to it because I feel like it's going to break my heart in some way. I always have to work my way up to those kinds of movies.
Well, it's beautifully done. It's beautifully done. I know that there are people, there's controversy on either ways. There's beautifully done, but there's a very interesting conversation that happens between Malcolm X and, why is his name escaping me, Ahmed, the football Jones.
Jim Brown.
Jim Brown. Thank you. Sorry. And again, who knows what really happened in that room? So a lot of this movie was fictitious, but there's a conversation between Jim Brown and Malcolm X, and Jim Brown says to Malcolm X, it's real interesting that sometimes it's the light-skinned ones that are the most militant, because the light-skinned ones, and he asked the question, who are you trying to prove your blackness to, the white people or the black people? And it's interesting because some of the most militant black people I know are light-skinned, you know, and again, that continuously, not just having to acknowledge, but having to prove that cultural heritage, that cultural belonging. And I appreciate you saying, and again, I'm gonna let other people talk here in a minute, But I appreciating you saying that space, you know, creating at Type A, that space that's for everyone, but specifically Black people. Because I'll say I have felt othered in so many rooms, even in Black spaces. I wonder,
Mhm.
I will walk in timidly, wondering if I'm going to belong because am I Black enough to be in that space? Society has made me Black, but does my community see me that way? So what do I need to do to make sure that my community sees me that way?
Yeah. You know, so fortunate for me that I'm a school teacher, and these three kids that I have, they just have always been learning how to learn, and that learning is a thing that you do for your whole life. I'm so very proud of them, and they teach me all the time. So because I'm a teacher, I understand that, and you know, a lot of people do, but this is just a function of my profession. I understand that you are always learning. You always can learn something. And so with these three around, they're always teaching me something. And the latest thing that I've heard is that race is a social construct. And you know, the kids are saying to me, it's constructed mostly by people who want to create a hierarchy to make some races or a particular race, particularly a white race, better than other races, whatever that construct is supposed to be. So when we're dealing with something that's not even really real, like tangible, you're a certain race doesn't, what does that mean? You know, I guess we could talk about that all night. What does that actually mean?
Mhm.
So first of all, it's just a social construct. So the fact that they have to make a choice at all is just bewildering. There was one point in life, I think one of them was in middle school, and it was just like this terrible time for any parent.
For any kid.
For any kid, I'm sorry. For all of us, it's terrible. Where they're trying to figure out what the heck is going on. And I just said, you know what? If anybody asks you, tell them you are a freaking American. Say I'm an American and leave it at that. That didn't last very long, but that should be the thing that the kids are able to say. That should have been the end of it. So I guess my question, I guess, to the wider world is who made a deal of it so that my kids couldn't just say that couldn't just be good enough. They had to say, they had to identify a certain way. And I never have had to do that. You know, I didn't have to do that, right? I'm born, I'm Black, my parents are Black. And even though I didn't know what that meant for a long time, I know what I look like, and the world treated me accordingly. United States treated me accordingly. But my three kids got the opportunity to make a choice. And I know the kids have made all different. Once my daughter was in at junior theater, she was in Legally Blonde, and she played the lead. She wore a blonde wig, and oh my God, she's like just fair enough to where putting on that blonde wig, and she has a lot of her dad's features. She's got a very pointy chin, and you know, she's soft looking. It flew over. It was brilliant. It was great. And then she also in junior theater was in Guys and Dolls, and she was one of the little girls, the hot box girls. She wore a platinum blonde wig in that too, and I'm like, oh my God, whose kid is that? I don't know whose kid that is. She could have easily just been like a really tan white girl. So I guess that particular luxury, or if it were, of being able to make a choice and then them making that choice, I felt very honored that they wanted to do that. But at the same time, it feels like they do fight hard. You know, like the person who comes to the United States and wants to get citizenship. My daughter-in-law's mom, my co-mom, they're from Vietnam, and she had to take her citizenship exam. You had to read the Constitution. You got to know Bill of Rights, stuff that no American knows.
Right.
We don't know any of that stuff.
Right.
They are working harder to be identified as an American. And I feel like there's like some kind of parallel we can draw there with what my kids decided to work harder to be a Black person. They decided we're going to identify like this. We are fighting for this cause. Then this is our pulpit. This is our bully pulpit that we stand on. At the same time, and I hate to say it because I know their white family is loving and adoring every step that they make, really. But if my kids had decided I'm white, would America have let my kids be white? would they have been allowed to push that envelope? How hard would they have to push? I'm glad we didn't find out. It, in a way, I guess it might have been easier for them to decide to be Black identified because they're with me all the time and with my family most of the time. So that's what was absorbed by them for the most part. And that's how they're identified, because they're with me. But it is a question I think about sometimes. What if they had decided they wanted to be white or be of two races acknowledged all the time?
I was going to say it would have to be the of two, because they wouldn't. I mean, I just know Zach. There is no way Zach could have identified as white and been white and decided in society, even if he didn't. I love his hair. I love that he's cut it too. I love the braids, but I love that he's good. You know, but again, even if he didn't wear his hair in a Black style, he never would have been able to choose white. He always would have been that Black dude trying to be white.
Right.
And it, you know, and again, it wasn't until I want to say the TCG conference in Miami, what was that, two years ago? I think it was 2019, that we were in room. And again, there were so many beautiful safe spaces for people of color. And it was a woman's room. It was a women of color room. And we all went around and said how we identified. And it was in that room that I realized I identify as a light-skinned, mixed race Black woman. Because all of those things come with something different, but they all are very, very true for me. I identify as Black, I identify as mixed race, and being a light-skinned Black woman comes with its own privileges and baggage, you know? And to try to separate that, I have been doing myself an injustice my entire life, and trying to fit in maybe in places that I don't belong. That's where my insecurity of, do I belong in this space is, because I'm not being true to the full trichotomy of my identity.
Right. Yeah. Are we going to belong? It's a funny word, belonging. It's a blessing and a curse, isn't it? But we should all belong wherever we are, because we're human beings who deserve respect and a place on the earth. Whatever place you are occupying is the place that you deserve. And that's where you belong. We all belong here. So once again, it's like that construct of race that forces this choice of what are you, and also where do you belong. So it's an uphill battle.
What are you? That question, what are you? Oh, my entire life. My entire life. What are you? Oh, it's a terrible question.
I'm a Spanish speaker, and I started speaking Spanish in middle school. So when I took my first job, it was with, that I would be teaching a bilingual class. So it's not so much like that anymore, because of the way that education has gone and mainstreaming and whatnot. So I don't really have to speak Spanish that much in my classroom anymore. Usually with my parents, I do. But when I first started out, it was just like a bilingual class. And so when I would speak Spanish, oh my gosh, the looks on the students' faces, they are just like, what is going on? The world is not right. Why is this Black lady speaking fluent Spanish to us? What has happened? Are you Dominican? Where are you from? And I said, no, I was born right here in San Diego. And I just got that sideways eye for a few years, until people realized that. And the kids would try to talk behind my back and speak in Spanish. And then when I would respond to them in Spanish, they're just like, oh, explicative. We cannot be getting away with things in here. What is going on with the world? So it's that piece of like, and I feel like language, just a little tangent, is a doorway into lots of other worlds. I think it helps you belong, if we're going to keep using that word. It helps you belong in a lot of different spaces, because you hardly can understand, I guess, a culture until you can speak their language and know where it's coming from and why it comes out the way that it does. I think it's the same thing with our colloquial Black language that we use, which is different in every family. Like I said, my grandparents are from Shreveport, Louisiana. So on holidays in that house, you would know if you belonged or not, because either you understood what people were saying or you did not know what to do or where to go. Like, where's the food? What did Nana say? I don't know. I can't understand her, But language is a window into other people's worlds. And we all would do better to be more than monolingual if we're going to ever fix this ever fix this mess that we're in the United States. That'll be one good step, I'd say.
Right. You know, to touch on what you're talking about, the identity thing, and I want to bring that around to where we are in theater right now. But it's funny, right? Because growing up as, you know, just dark-skinned Black boy, when I was in the 7th grade, I could hide behind one of the poles on the damn playground because I was so skinny with these long, but you would see me because you see a big juicy curl and long feet sticking out from behind the pole. But I was awkward as it came. I was as awkward as you could be, but I was still tall and dark. And that was always intimidating. There was no getting around that. He's going to be a big Black boy. I came from a big Black family, you know. But at the same time, growing up here in San Diego, I grew up in Mira Mesa. So those of us who grew up in Mira Mesa, so we were already othered because we were the minority in the neighborhood. So we are already othered off of us just being Black. Okay, that's cool. But, and I say this, and people don't like me to say it in San Diego, but this is the truth. I'm a San Diego native. There's no one who has a claim on San Diego more than I do. We got othered by the Black folks in San Diego who lived in Southeast or in East Dago. We got othered because we didn't talk like them. We weren't from that part of town, which was supposed to be the Black part of town.
Yeah.
And so therefore it was like, oh, well, are you Black and from there? I'm like, I'm as Dago. I was born at Balboa Naval Hospital. I'm as Black in Dago as it gets. No one can you can't overtake me in that. But that's what you're talking about, how deep this construct goes, because we even get there to where we'll overlook our similarity. Like, well, you're not Black, Dago, because you're not from where the other Black people in San Diego are supposed to live at. And once you realize you're Black, Dago, you're supposed to move over here, you know, or be whatever. And the way I bring that back into what we're talking about identity is like where we're at this point right now, you know, in theater and in performing arts and sports and everything, you know, we worked on, like I said, we worked on the Black Voices reading series. And one of the plays I really liked was Baton. And the thing I find myself in meetings and talking about Black plays is that I'm trying to move away from the sensational and get to the stories of people, of Black people as being people. You know what I mean? Like everything does not have to be about the shooting, or if it is, there are other stories. And like we did with Baton, you know, I kept telling people the reason why I like that story was because, yeah, here's a Black woman whose husband was a white cop who abused somebody, but she had been in love with him for years. And now this comes along and everybody wanted her to stop with him immediately. But this is her husband, who she's loved for years, who she never saw that side of. And so this is a love story. This is a tragedy, but it's a love story. And this is a story of a Black woman that we don't hear, that you haven't heard. You know what I mean? And we saw that like during the summer, we saw members of the Proud Boys and police officers who had Black wives and, you know, that, you know, and yeah, so I'm like, yeah, that's a Black woman in America. And she's got a story, but it's not the story that's being told. It's not a story that's being told, you know? And, you know, I've had conversations, or I just had a conversation a couple of weeks ago where I had to have someone tell me, well, I don't think that's how a Black boy would be. Well, yeah, because, well, yeah, like every Black boy is not super aggressive. Have you been around young Black teen? We're pretty awkward, like every other teenager. We're pretty awkward and shy and stupid. And, you know, and it's like, well, maybe the playwright didn't write him right. Oh, the Black playwright who was a Black boy didn't write the Black boy right.
Yes.
And so my thing in this situation is people think we're just like, oh, we just need more Black people on stage. We just need more, but no, we want the stories to reflect the non-monolithic nature of what we are, that we are part of this human family, and we're not these tropes or memes that you have been raised and conditioned to see us as only. And so I bring that back around to you, because at this time, I think we talked to Jeremy McQueen a couple weeks ago, and
I remember
he said a statement in a way that I had not heard it said before. And we asked him about this current time, what's going on. And he said it was performative solidarity.
Yes.
And I had not heard it state, like when he said it in that term, it just was like, whoa, that's exactly how I feel. And so I just wanted to talk to you about this time we're in. As you know, people thought it was just going to be, we make statements, we get through the summer, we put some Black folks on stage, we hire some more Black people, everything's fine. But we're seeing in everywhere, whether it's there's equity, whether it's like, we're seeing the issues that are coming from people having to really deal with that moment now. I just want to get your thoughts as we ask everybody who comes on this, how are you feeling about this time, especially right now, as it seems like we're in this kind of uneasy time as we get ready to open back up, because there's still so much in flux, and we're still seeing people act so badly.
Yeah. I appreciate that. And I felt the same way when I read Baton, by the way. I felt like this is a story. It's just a story. It doesn't have to be, it could be anybody. And it's important, but it wasn't. It's a Black woman's story, and it's important that we tell those stories that are dynamic, so that, like I said, for type A, whatever you bring, if you're Black, whatever kind of Black you are, and you walk into the room, whatever your story is, it's a Black story, because it happened to you or with you in it. And I think we have to keep pushing that. That is going to be our prodding rod, our cattle prod that we can use throughout this whole situation, because that performative solidarity is really what the PWIs, the primarily white institutions, have been able to get by with in other times of upheaval. This is not the first time that we keep going around with this, demanding this or that. We haven't had it during a pandemic where people have been forced to sit and listen and see the actual, reaping what we sow type situation. And perhaps the time will come when everything's back to normal and we're all in the Harry Carey craziness of production again. God bless you. And we forget, some of us are going to forget, and what has happened and what's been happening. But I think that somebody else in the room will be there to give you the little elbow and say, hey, it's not over. Don't let that go. Don't let that go. We just needed more people, I think, to be more woke, more alert to the situation, because I think there's plenty of good, well-meaning everybody's, of course, right? There's plenty of well-meaning everybody's. And some people just feel afraid to speak their mind for whatever reason. I once heard an interview on PBS by a woman. She was very, very old Black woman who had been, she had been enslaved. And she had lived long enough to give this interview to a journalist. And she said about white people, she said, I don't think they know that they're doing it. And I don't think, so she said, I'm paraphrasing, they have to be that way to stay white, as if they'd be kicked out of the club if they didn't act that way. Like the other white people wouldn't let them stay in the club if they don't act a certain way. That's how she had, reasoned it in her mind. But it made so much sense to me, because peer pressure really is something. I was in a meeting not that long ago, and a wonderful person, set designer, was giving a presentation on set design. And she used a racially insensitive word that people use all the time and don't think anything of it. She said gypsy. Now, she was giving the presentation, and I thought to myself, oh my gosh, if there are any Romani, I'm not sure if it's Romani or Romani, people sitting in this room right now, in this workshop, they are disengaged. They feel this big right now. Nobody's sticking up, nobody's saying anything. And I couldn't make myself say anything. I didn't want to interrupt her presentation. I didn't want to embarrass her. I didn't want to, all those things. I didn't pop out and say it. I think that we're coming to a time where pretty soon, though, there would have been somebody else in the room to say, hey, are you sure that's a word you should use? And then I would have said, yeah, I don't think that's a word that we should use. You know what I mean? There'll be more of us in the room. We just have to support each other and call out that performative solidarity, because I'm pretty sure that a lot of institutions are feeling that, well, look, we did Juneteenth's coming up. Well, look, we did Juneteenth. Now they're going to leave us alone. well, look, we did such and such Black play. They're going to leave us alone now. I think it's up to all of us, allies and BIPOC people, to say gently, and some of us not so gently, no, that's not enough. I understand the pain that you feel in sharing the power. However, it was not yours to begin with. You have taken it. You have absconded with something that does not belong to you. And people are coming for what belongs to them. Like I told my kids, we are Americans. If we really are going to like embrace that, then what is more American than pretty much taking what's yours? And the amount of power that Black people and people of color and indigenous people are due in this country, it's just going to have to be taken. Now, I'm not advocating for any kind of violence at all, of course. We can just keep on doing it with these talks and with the things that we do in our daily life. We're not going to, gosh, I used to do this and I'm embarrassed when I think about it, but I'm a product of my upbringing, is let white people go first out of the elevator. My grandpa was like that. Whenever he would see a white person, bless his beautiful heart, he would bend his head and wave his hand to them. Now he's from Louisiana. So that was a thing you needed to do so that you wouldn't be killed, right? To show that you are not threatened. I'm not threatening you. I'm just saying hello to you. And I did that for the longest time. And I had to think to myself, why am I bowing my head when I'm waving at these white folks? What am I doing? So sometimes it's just a matter of examining our actions and choosing what we're not going to do anymore and what we're not going to stand for anymore and what we're not going to be gently leading people towards anymore. It's 2021. I think the time for gently leading people is over. And as forceful as people have been with us, with the white gaze, with the white perspectives, with all the history that we know, any of us can produce a movie or a film or a piece of theater about any white icon, any white president in our history, because that is our society. That's what we've been brought up to believe, that that's mainstream. We all know about that. We can all do that very well. And now it's time to move that aside and input in those gaps that exist, the Black, Indigenous, and people of color, who also had just as much to do with the development of this country and this industry and everything that we do on this globe, let alone the United States, to put ourselves in those places. We can't wait to be placed, because the performative solidarity is going to keep them from doing it. They're going to feel like they're going to lose some footing, but we can't lose what we don't have. We need to take what belongs to us. And everything in this country, as far as I'm concerned, belongs just as much to me and my children as it does to anyone with any fairer skin, any white person. That the power has to be taken back, and we have to support each other in doing that. So Ahmed, the next meeting that we're in, or Jacole, the next meeting that we're in, if I pop off, you better be there. You gotta back me up.
Me and Jacole don't know anything about popping off in meetings.
We got no that. Don't trip. Don't trip. We got that. But no, it's interesting. Well, one, I love the phrase, what's more American than taking what's yours? Like, I love that. I might need to, because I'm like, I'm so all American, I should be on a fucking Gap ad. The fact that they have to hyphen American me makes me so angry. Anyway, that's a whole other conversation. But but going back to what you were saying, it's yes, I think it's going to take two things. Well, it's going to take a million things, but the two things identifying from this conversation is, as you're saying, it's going to take more people, more individuals being willing to be that first person to speak up. Like you said, there's going to be more people that will speak up, and then that will allow other people to be like, yeah, you know what? I feel the same way. But we all need to become a little bit more comfortable being that first person. And then as the institutions need to have something to back up those individuals. One of the things that I am so proud that is about to come out of La Jolla Playhouse is a value statement. And this is a value statement. It'll go public soon, but it's a value statement that was constructed by the staff, by the members of the Accountability and Inclusion Alliance that includes half of the staff at La Jolla Playhouse, and it identifies our values. And this is now something that is going to go public and put out there. And when people who are on our campus are exhibiting behaviors that do not fall within our values, we have a tool to be able to now stand, because we feel like we couldn't speak. We didn't have that thing. Well, I don't know. These people give us millions of dollars.
Right.
I'm, middle management. Do I have the authority to say this person is a bad behavior? Yes, I do. And whether it is directly to that person to say, hi, us here at La Jolla Playhouse, we have identified our values. These are they. That behavior that you're exhibiting does not fall under our values. It would be best if you adjust your behavior or leave the Playhouse. So now, not everybody is going to be empowered to say that, but now you do have the power to go to your direct supervisor who does have the authority to tell that person your behavior is not falling with under our values and you need to make change. But it has to be everybody has to be willing to stand behind those values, because that's why we have them now, that tool. So I think, the individuals need to be willing to speak up, and the institutions need to provide the resources to support those individuals for standing up.
Absolutely. And it's a scary place to be. It can be a scary place to be. Everybody's going to be uncomfortable, and we just have to, push through, because nothing worth getting is going to be an easy thing unless you're inheriting it. But what we've inherited as Black people in the United States is kind of an uphill. It's kind of an uphill battle, but it's not anything that we're not used to. So we have to just rally.
Kimberly, I want to touch back on what you said about taking back what's ours, is because I always get just like you, my parents were from the South. I was the first one born in California. Everybody's from the swamps of Alabama, and I would go back to visit Alabama and Florida every summer and in the winters. And so coming back to San Diego, I knew, because going back there in the 80s and 90s, that Jim Crow stank was still in the air. Like, people that was out here I was like, no, go back and stay in Alabama and North Carolina, go stay in these places for a little bit and you'll see it's not all good. So that always illuminated me to that. That history was always present with me. It was never something I had to go find. It was there. My dad's garage, to this day, we still have old Union sewing machines and old butter churns and the stuff that people had to use, and everything that my mom and dad and my family had to use to wash their clothes, the turpentine and this and that. Like, we knew that. We were raised with that understanding. But it's so important, like they always say, we don't know where we're going unless we know where we came from. And that thing about you said about it's ours to take back, people need to understand, for those who keep hearing about there's no such thing as institutional racism, they need to understand that the National Theater Act was part of the New Deal. And the National Theater Act, being part of the New Deal, was to encourage art and plays and theater from Blacks and others. And it started to flourish until McCarthy and the Department of Un-American Activities decided that anything promoting the mixing or education of races was un-American and communist, and decided to abolish the National Theater Act when it came to any works that weren't white. And so many great national works in the early 20th century that were Black were destroyed, disbanded. Black theater houses disbanded. And the networks that were set up, and the networks that still exist today that we use, those networks were set up to shop European and white plays on the national level, and to continue to take the money from those who are affluent to continue pushing those plays around the country while they destroyed the works of others. This is the missing ingredient that many Black people and white people don't understand about the national history of theater and why we're at this moment. That what you're saying is not hyperbole. It is true. This was ours, and we were flourishing. The United States government and those who led it at the time decided that is communist. We need to destroy this. And so that is then, and I just want to give context to people who don't know that history, because that ain't taught in school, it's barely taught in college. You got to get in some history books and find that, and I just wanted people to understand that that's not just hyperbole and just saying, no, that's a national fact, that the works of great Black artists, playwrights were destroyed. They were destroyed, beat down, put aside so that because it was communist for the races to learn about each other. But like I said, that was a way for the rich donors, those who were affluent, to push white works in mass throughout the country with the backing of these big network playhouses and the United States government and grants. And so that's just, when you said that, I just wanted people to understand, like, no, there's a factual historical foundation in what Kimberly is saying. And I want young Black people to understand, this was you. This was your history. These were generations of playwrights and artists that were kept from you, that were kept from coming to the light. So yes, this is your birthright, as Jacole said, an American, not an African-American, not as an American.
I was just reading about it Langston Hughes, and so many of his plays lost in this book I recently acquired, Lost Plays of the Harlem Renaissance. And he just kept getting so demoralized and depressed over, can we do this play? Oh no, it's too aggressive. We can't do this one. Oh, how about this one? And it was tough even then, when the money was at first being thrown at the situation. It was still tough. There were still rules, regulations, and people trying to monitor and regulate the Black body, the Black voice, and the Black mind, for that matter. But theater is one place where it's a great equalizer, I think, on stage, if you can get the right thing on stage, and we can, and we will. And I think it's going to just keep happening more. We just have to be more vocal and continue to be prolific and be annoying. It's going to be annoying to some people to keep on hearing it, but like I said, I want to earn my place on this earth. And that is one of the things that I'm here to do. Become someone who can help someone. I'm constantly becoming. But right now, I noticed that I just looked over at the clock. I want to become someone who talks about my current endeavors. Is that okay?
Yeah. Oh, no,
yes, I think that's a great way to close this out. Yeah, for sure, for sure.
So I'm so happy. I was in a collaboration, which was really a product of this whole pandemic situation. You guys know about Theater Alliance, that kind of came out of a few different things that I've heard about. But when I came on board, it was like, okay, we're all theater professionals in San Diego and we are out of work. What are we going to do? So we allied together and tried to pull together. And the Theater Alliance is a great facilitator, and now working with SDPAL. I think even more workshops and great roundtables are going to be happening with Theater Alliance, but collaborations are a great outcome. And so my theater company, Teenage Youth Performing Arts, along with the Roustabouts, who were the spearhead of the entire endeavor, and American History Theater, who had the rights to the play, we have just released The Mountaintop, two-hander with Ashley Graham and Kyle Noble, looking at a fictional account of Dr. Martin Luther King's last night on Earth. What was that like in that hotel room? What may have happened? I was the dramaturg. I'm so happy to say my sons were the stage managers. We had a Black costume designer, Bionica Bullard, you might know her, Black lighting designer, Michonne Tucker, who also a graduate of our own SCPA here in town, and also a junior theater alumni. He also works quite a bit with TYPA. We love him so much. And with, like I said, the Roustabouts and American History Theater, everyone was so wonderful. We got together and made this play, filmed this play. And so it's out right now, going through, I think, May 13th, but there's one weekend in Theater Week where you can catch it, but it's streaming right now. Also, what else did I want to say was happening? Oh, man.
I think you meant, when you said Theater Week, I think you meant Theater Month.
Theater Month.
Due to the pandemic, San Diego Performing Arts League's Theater Week has been extended to the month of May.
Yes, you are correct. Thank you very much for that, the whole month. So everybody enjoy theater all month, and please see The Mountaintop. It's well worth it. I think it's what happens when we let our martyrs come back to earth and be part of us again. Because when you separate the martyr from the rest of the public, we kind of let ourselves off the hook, don't we? Oh, I can't do that. They're a martyr. They're special. But you know what? We can do those same things, because martyrs are people before they're anything else, and we shouldn't let ourselves off the hook so easily. Also, keep an eye out for Type A's new work. Hopefully, if if the granting goes the way that we want it to, and the AOI does not control everything, and people know what that is, theater people will probably know the annual operating income, I believe that's what it is. The more you create, the more that you apparently are eligible for granting. Hopefully that will not remain true, because that really hurts our smaller and theaters of color. It hurts us a lot that we have to make more money before we can ask for any money from the city and the state. We'll be coming out with a devised piece called Rise Up, looking and paralleling all the different struggles, many different struggles in San Diego County, and how your struggle might line up with someone else's struggle through forms of dance and spoken word and monologue. We'll be illustrating the rise up process that San Diegans do each and every day, just to highlight how much we have in common, more than what we have separated. Let's see. Also, I'm really excited. Oh, I see Jimmy's here. I'm so glad to see you here, Jimmy, because I wanted to say about next season, Snowy Day by Ezra Jack Keats. And I wanted to mention Snowy Day because it's a theater for young audiences, but it also touches on what you were talking about earlier, Ahmed, regarding stories about people. So Snowy Day was the first book that I ever read as a little kid, because it had a little black boy was the focus, center frame, black face.
And with his little red hoodie. I always loved that little red hoodie.
Yes,
for Willie. Staple in my house, yeah.
But guess what? Ezra Jack Keats, the author of that book, was a white man. Yeah. Written by
Ezra Jack Keats is a white man?
Yes.
Snowy Day, Whistle for Willie, all of those?
Yes. Yes. But the point is, Ezra Jack Keats said, I'm going to write a story. Why wouldn't the lead be a little black boy just as well as a little white boy? So it's normalization, right, of the black body, because he wasn't trying to write a black story.
He was just writing a story about a boy.
A story about a boy.
Wow.
And
you just
love
blew
it so much.
My mind.
So it's a fantastic conclusion to our talk, because we really, for me anyway, as a black person, I just want to be part of the story. I want to be part of the conversation. I want to be considered an equal part of the American story, like everybody else, like every white person that was ever the beginning of any paragraph in any history book that anyone's ever written about this country. That's just where we want to be too. That's where we belong. We were there, we contributed, and this is everyone's story. So, and theater is the place I think we can work together and make that happen. Theater Alliance has shown that can happen in San Diego. Black Artists Collective shooting out work for Juneteenth to make that happen in San Diego, along with a lot of other groups. It's going to be wonderful Juneteenth in this town. I think it's going to be huge.
Yeah. It's about time.
Wonderful. So thank you guys for having me here, and thank you for letting the plug happen with Mountaintop. Everybody see Mountaintop.
Hey, and that's directed by the amazing Candace Crystal, right?
Amazing Candace Crystal. I'm so lucky she's adopted me as her San Diego mom. So, I'm putting in work. I can't go anywhere without being somebody's mom, y'all. That's what I do.
Well, I got a white mom. I need a black mom. So I might be coming to you.
Perfect time. Okay, well, let's do it. I got to check out I'm going to look at your phone.
Well, look, Kimberly, we want to thank you for being here. Real quick before you go, I want to tell everybody about what we have coming up next, or who we have coming up next. If you guys will look at your screen, coming up on Thursday, May 13th, we will be welcoming Kalundra Smith. Kalundra Smith is a journalist and Black theater critic. She actually writes for American Theater Magazine and another periodical in Atlanta. I think that's going to be an amazing conversation to talk to her and get her view as far as being a critic. I think people don't understand, okay, how many Black critics do y'all know? Okay. And then on Thursday, May 27th, we're really excited to be joined by Margot Hall, just a spectacular actor, director, and she is now the artistic director of the historically named Lorraine Hansberry Theater up in the Bay Area. You're talking about One Night in Miami, Lorraine Hansberry, you're talking about Sam Cooke, and she's part of that era of one of the names that is not really talked about, or a lot of people know, but just a figure in the civil rights movement, along with James Baldwin and Dick Gregory and all of them at that time. So we're really looking forward to have those conversations. Everybody, please head on over to sdrep.org/listening to register for those conversations. Kimberly, this was wonderful. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. I know I'll be talking to you on emails all day tomorrow.
Yes,
we got business to handle.
We do. We need to handle it, bro. Holla at your girl, okay? Thank you guys so much. I really enjoyed being here with you. I appreciate this so much. I appreciate you two are doing a wonderful thing. Support your local dramaturgs.
There you go.
Next time you go to the theater, say, I wish there had been a dramaturg on this show. Just say it. Just say it out loud.
And Jacole, again, thank you so much for riding with me. And this was another spectacular conversation in the books for us. And we got more coming up, y'all. Again, make sure you visit LaJollaPlayhouse.org, visit theoldglobe.org. Please visit sdrep.org. Also visit San Diego Black Artists Collective.org. I will be getting some stuff on that website, as we have got some events coming up, like Kimberly talked about. We have a Juneteenth festival coming up, so I'll be getting that stuff all up on the website. Get it all hooked up so y'all can subscribe. So be on the lookout for the San Diego Black Artists Collective. And with that, I wish all of you, Jacole, Kimberly, all of our audience and everybody listening, everybody have a good night. Enjoy your weekend. Don't work too hard tomorrow. Kind of glide into the weekend. And we'll talk to y'all in a couple of weeks. Have a good night, everybody.
Thanks for listening.